And what, in brief, are the five aggregates connected with cleaving? They are bodily form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Any material form, whether one's own or external, gross or subtle, lofty or low, far or near, belongs to the aggregate of bodily form connected with cleaving. Any feeling belongs to the aggregate of feeling. Any perception belongs to the aggregate of perception. Any formation belongs to the aggregate of formations. All consciousness belongs to the aggregate of consciousness. The arising of consciousness is dependent upon conditions, and without these conditions, no consciousness arises. Suppose a person who can see were to behold the many bubbles on the Ganges River as they are driving along, and he or she should watch them and carefully examine them. After carefully examining them, they will appear to him or her as empty, unreal, and unsubstantial. In exactly the same way does the person hold all the bodily forms, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and states of consciousness, whether they be of the past or the present or the future, far or near. And he or she watches them and examines them carefully, and after examining them, they appear to him or her as empty, void, and without an ego. Whoso delights in bodily form or feeling or perception or mental formations or consciousness, he or she delights in suffering. And whoso delights in suffering will not be freed from suffering. Thus I say, how can you find delight and mirth where there is burning without end? In deepest darkness you are wrapped. Why do you not seek for the light? Look at this puppet here, well rigged, a heap of many sores piled up, diseased and full of greediness, unstable and impermanent. Devoured by old age is this frame, a prey of sickness, weak and frail. To pieces breaks this putrid body. All life must truly end in death. Did you ever see in the world a man or a woman, 80, 90, or 100 years old, frail, crooked as a gable roof, bent down, supported on a staff, with tottering steps, infirm, youth long since fled, with broken teeth, gray and scanty hair, or bald-headed, wrinkled, with blotched limbs? And did the thought ever come to you that you are also subject to decay, that you cannot escape it? Did you ever see in the world a man or a woman who, being sick, afflicted, and grievously ill, and wallowing in one's own filth, was lifted up by some people and put to bed by others? And did the thought ever come to you that you also are subject to disease, that you cannot escape it? Did you ever in the world see the corpse of a man or a woman 1 or 2 or 3 days after death, swollen up, blue-black in color, and full of corruption? And did the thought never come to you that you are also subject to death, that you cannot escape it? Inconceivable is the beginning of this samsara. Which do you think is more, the flood of tears which, weeping and wailing, you have shed upon this long way, hurrying and hastening through this round of rebirths, united to the undesired, separated from the desired, this, or the waters of the 4 oceans? Long time have you suffered the death of father and mother, of sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters, and, whilst you were thus suffering, you have verily shed more tears upon this long way than there is water in the 4 oceans. But how is this possible? Inconceivable is the beginning of this samsara, not to be discovered, a first beginning of beings who, obstructed by ignorance and ensnared by craving, are hurrying and hastening through this round of rebirths. And thus have you long time undergone suffering, undergone torment, undergone misfortune, and filled the graveyards full, verily long enough to be dissatisfied with every form of existence, long enough to turn away and free yourselves from them all.